Entry 23. Culture rubs off on you. I'll start this entry with a few examples. 1. After I had spent 2 years in the States, although I couldn't hear it, my normal Kiwi accent was populated with an occasional American twang. 2. Though a particular child I used to teach had never been to the States, and both his parents were fully New Zealanders with Kiwi accents, he spoke with this really weird American accent, likely due to all the TV he watched and video games he played. 3. When my wife and I married, after a while we realized it was like trying to meld two foreign cultures together. Though we had grown up in the same town and were ethnically quite similar, our family mottos and traditions, our family cultures, were wildly different, and we realized we had to forge new traditions and a new culture. 4. Most of us in the Western world have grown up in a culture that inherently objectifies women and makes them out to be things to be possessed, used, and subjugated for man's pleasure. Both men and women are affected by this. For better or for worse, culture rubs off on you. When we spend too long in a culture that is not our Heavenly Father's culture, that culture rubs off on us. We all find ourselves in this space. Our Father's kingdom and His culture is one that is not of this world. His ways are above our ways. The culture of the world we find ourselves living in rubs off on us, whether we like it or not. From what we see on TV and other screens, social media, billboards and adverts when walking down the street, societal traditions and accepted behaviors, unique family group-based cultures and ethnic group-based cultures, all these and more, to a certain degree, influence our thinking, often in subtle ways. The author of Psalm 120 knew of this phenomenon and its influence on his own character, and he wasn't that happy about it. Here's Psalm 120. In my distress, I cried to Yah, and he answered me. Yah, deliver my being from false lips, from a treacherous tongue. What would one give to you, or what would one do to you, O treacherous tongue? Sharp arrows of a mighty man with coals of the broomwood? Woe to me, for I have sojourned in Meshech. I have dwelt among the tents of Kedar. My being has dwelt too long with him who hates peace. I am for peace, but when I speak, they are for fighting. Psalm 120. The people of Kedar and Meshech were known as reasonably warlike people, not peace-loving. Their culture was not of the Father's ways. So when the psalmist says, I am for peace, but when I speak they are for fighting, I believe that they is twofold. Yes, they is the people of Meshech and Kedar, the folks whom he's been amongst, but they is also the very words the psalmist utters himself. He is talking about his strong desire to be saved from a treacherous tongue and lying lips. I believe that is not just the words of others he's talking about. It's also his own words that have been influenced by the time he's spent in these cultures that are not of his heavenly Father. A good man, out of the good treasure of his heart, bringeth forth that which is good, and an evil man, out of the evil treasure of his heart, bringeth forth that which is evil. For of the abundance of his heart his mouth speaketh. That's Luke chapter 6, verse 45. Culture rubs off on us and influences our character, because our words are an expression of what's dwelling in our heart. Psalm 120 reminds me of Paul's words. For what I work, I know not. For what I wish, that I do not practice. But what I hate, that I do. But if I do what I do not wish, I agree with the Torah that it is good. And now it is no longer I that work it, but the sin dwelling in me. For I know that in me, that is, in my flesh, dwells no good. For to wish is present with me, but to work the good I do not find. For the good that I wish to do, I do not do. The evil I do not wish to do, this I practice. And if I do that which I do not wish, it is no longer I who work it, but the sin dwelling in me. I find therefore this law, that when I wish to do the good, that the evil is present with me, for I delight in the Torah of Elohim according to the inward man, but I see another law in my members, battling against the Torah of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my members. Wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from this body of death? Thanks to Elohim, through Yeshua Messiah, our Master. So then, with the mind I myself truly serve the Torah of Elohim, but with the flesh the law of sin. Romans 7, verses 15 through 25. In this passage, Paul is very aware of and unhappy with the battle raging within him between the flesh and the spirit. This is similar to how the psalmist of Psalm 120 is upset with the treacherous tongue and lying lips. He is so upset he likens his dislike to wanting to pierce the treacherous tongue with sharp arrows, or to inflict them with coals of a fire made from broomwood. The arrows is a relatively straightforward image for us, but to understand the broomwood image fully, we need a bit of context. The broomwood, in the Near East, was the juniper tree. Desert stories would tell that a fire lit with juniper would burn so hot its coals would still be burning if you left it and came back a year later. Now that's some heat. Do we feel that strongly about the war within us, about our thoughts, words, and consequently behaviors that are not of our Heavenly Father's culture? Do we actually want to change that badly? Or are we blind to how culture has influenced us and, therefore, living in ignorant but sinful bliss? The hope that we find in Psalm 120 is that, if we have eyes to see, helping us to recognize the problem and feel conviction, in the midst of this deep distress, we can call to Yah, and Yah answers us. Praise His name. And if we are sincerely authentic in our conviction and motivation, He does answer us, not always how we want or expect, not always in the time frame we would like, but He does answer us, and there is much hope in that. For if we are sincere in our longing and desire for His truth in our inward parts, He does answer us. His culture and His character can then begin to rub off on us.